What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. Today I want to talk about the black population. The black population, the African population. Because I'm hearing all these weird ass black people make these weird ass arguments that have nothing to do with us, and they're having these arguments on behalf of white people. Okay? So we're going to talk about, in reality, we're going to talk about population. Because we got these black conservatives who want you to vote for the neo-Nazi in order to save black lives. And they justify, now keep in mind, these are the same people that say they don't want the federal government in their business when it comes to what they're doing with their doctors. They don't want the federal government, they don't want this big, huge government, this bureaucracy to tell them what they can do with their bodies. You know, they want hands off, right? They want freedom, except for women. Except for women. Except for women, right? Let's keep that in mind. So, it's okay. These are the same people that had a problem wearing a mask. Remember, you know, masks that nurses have been wearing for 100+ years, every day on a daily basis now, right? But when grown men was told that for their own safety, they have to wear these little masks that nurses have been wearing and doctors have been wearing for 20, 30 years every day as they work in their professions. These grown men, these are the same men, black and white, who complained about wearing that mask and that government was overreaching, right? These same men, to protest, put on masks to hide their face when they wanted to protest the fact that they had to wear a mask because the government said it's for their benefit of their health. All right? These are the same people. Because they didn't want the government telling them what they need to do with their own bodies as sovereign human beings on this planet. But women, no. You don't get it right, right? And they have this obsession. These black, and the white ones, I understand. I understand why white people want to eliminate abortion. You see, it makes sense why white people want to eliminate abortion. What you don't know in that Project 2025, who these black people, despite all the evidence, they want to blow it off continuously because their masses told them, hey, you make sure you told them black people that this Project 2025 that we wrote up, yeah, it's not true, right? Because like puppets, they only move when the master's hands is wiggling. That's the only time you'll hear a Cunarian puppet move, is when the master's manipulating them. When the master's not doing this, they don't have no content. They got nothing to say. They're silent. I want you to notice that. So master speaks first, then the coons come and speak afterwards, right? After they get their marching orders from the strings, from the fingers that's pulling them. And sometimes the puppets don't even realize they're puppets. That's the best puppet, the one that don't know he's a puppet, right? So, population-wise, Europeans in every European country, and if you're a European watching me, you can attest to this, all right? Europeans are trying to reverse policies in order to get their females to give birth so that the population of Europeans don't go extinct, right? Because they're not replacing their numbers. Italy, the Italians are literally going extinct. Italians, they're going to be the first ones. Japan, between Japan and Italians, that's 1 and 2, they're going extinct because of the policies that were put in place. Okay? The policies, right? So the capitalistic policy has forced, right, the woman to have to work. Remember, these are the policies Republicans like. This is what they support and what they promote. Democrats too, because both Democrats and Republicans both support this system, this democratic system. Capitalism. Not to be confused with democracy. Democracy's fine. We're talking about capitalism. We're gonna separate the two. The capitalism is our business model, right? Democracy is our political model. But people like to mix those up like it's the same. It's not the same. right? We can be a democracy and have a different business model, right? So communism is a political model, right? Capitalism is a business model, right? Because communism requires the government to implement a lot of these things. America, we have a capitalistic system, but we also have social programs to balance the capitalistic systems. And all the social programs are the most popular programs. Even conservative white people want to make sure that they maintain Social Security, Medicaid, both socialist programs that Republicans, if any Republican politician were to say out loud to their constituents, right, that they don't like, that they want to get rid of Social Security or Medicare, they will not win office. That is something they have to do after they get in office quietly, because if they mention it, because Social Security and Medicare are the most popular programs in America, which are socialist programs, 80% of Americans approve of this program. 80, right? Which is a socialist program, is the only reason why a lot of Americans can survive in this hyper volatile capitalistic system where a few group of people already had a 400-year head start on capital. All right? But that system in of itself has created a hostile environment to where products and services are too expensive. Living is too expensive. One man cannot afford to take care of a household for the most part. The majority of Americans, any family unit, one man cannot take care of the household. So the woman, for the most part, has no choice but to work herself or get with someone that's rich, i.e. women have a choice. Get with somebody that has enough financial capability of taking care of her so she can stay home and have multiple children to replenish the population, you know, or she can like have a bunch of babies out of wedlock, and somehow create a business and be able to do all that and balance it herself, or she's not gonna do it. If a woman feels like, and a man feels like they can't afford to have children, they're not gonna do it. If the society and the environment is not conducive for having children, they're just not gonna do it. There's no government program that's gonna force people to do it. And it's happening everywhere. In China, because of their one child policy that they have reversed, right? They have a 2-child policy. Then they're trying to reverse it to a 3. But the system that they run, because y'all think China is just communism, but China is a communist/capitalistic country where they allow capitalism to operate, but controlled by the government with oversight, right? Insane amounts of Big Daddy oversight. Is on a whole nother level of oversight and control they have over their subjects. Because Chinese people have subjects, they don't have citizens. A subject is owned by the state. The citizen is a free person of the state, right? Now, in the Chinese youth, they are so stressed out about how their lives are, despite what you think, oh, China's rising, they're doing this. Those are few and far between business people who are connected to a government that's benefiting from global trade and all that stuff. That's not the average Chinese person. The average Chinese person is just as poor and desperate and struggling like any average African on the continent. Most Chinese people live just like African people live, in villages, in rural areas, in cities that are slummed out because of the lack of, a lot of things. And there are nice places too that you see on the camera all the time, right? They have all those elements of society, but the society is so rough that the women are not having children. They can barely even get married, because even the getting married with their traditional conservative, in a Chinese perspective way, they have to buy a house before they even get married. So while we talking about our women wanting $100,000, my man making $100,000, the Chinese woman saying, not only do you have to be making equivalent of $100,000 for me to even consider you, but you got to have already purchased me a house before I even consider marrying you. That's another level of financial burden on a man trying to get a woman in China. So a lot of men are saying, you know what, it's not worth it. Well, I'm not going to put myself in debt just to get a wife, and then have to have a child, have to pay for that child too. And then you telling me you want me to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 children. How is it even financially possible to do so? That's what's happening in China. In India, because it's the man that takes care of the woman, there's a lot of fanticide. What fanticide means is when a woman has a baby, if it's a girl, they kill the girl. They'll kill the baby. In India, they will kill the not all the time, obviously, some females. They will kill the baby because the investment is in the boy. Because if you have a boy, that boy is going to grow up, and his whole life is meant to put himself in a position to take care of his parents. Both his own biological parents and the woman he marries' parents. So the child is growing up because of their family structure, and his whole mission is to take care of his elderly. So that's why the male is important. When a woman is born in India, she goes off. When she marries, she belongs to the other family. She belongs to, so there's no financial benefit for a couple to have a woman, a girl baby, because you're just going to give her away. You're going to basically sell her off, and there will be no benefit to your family. So there's a lot of infanticide happening in India. So because of the infanticide that has happened, right, even though they have put policies in place, it's illegal and all that, but you can't stop people from doing things that they want to do, especially when it's embedded in the culture. So because of that, India has a lopsided male to female ratio. Have you ever noticed how there's a lot of Indians, and this also includes Pakistanis, they marry their cousins. It's tradition in Pakistan to marry your cousin. Men are marrying their female cousins, and because of that, there's all sorts of genetic issues in Pakistan because of that. But they haven't, the society as a whole hasn't intellectually evolved to get to the point where you're like, hey, you probably should not marry your cousin for health and genetic reasons. But throughout Pakistan, they marry their cousins, right? So of course that's going to have genetic consequences for the future, right? Indians, who are basically Pakistani, they're all the same people pretty much, kinda, right? Indians, because of their overwhelming population of boys, like I said, you notice there's a bunch of Indians and all you black women know this. How many Indians and Pakistani men do you have in your DMs right now? Have you noticed there's always an overwhelming amount of Pakistanis or Indians in your DM wanting to talk to you as a black, but they love you. You can do anything you post, they're on there. Anything. They don't care if you're married. They don't care if you got 4-5 kids. They don't care because you're a woman. Imagine not having woman stimulation in your country and seeing a woman. It's so bad in India, women get raped regularly. Like it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic in India for the amount of raping that happens there when the few women are left vulnerable in society. There's a curfew for women in India because it's that dangerous that there are gangs that are raping women all the time in India. And I'm not even being hyperbolic. It's serious. They have a population problem. So if there was 1 billion Indians, there's 1 billion old people who need to be taken care of. And these countries don't have Social Security and Medicare programs like America does to take care of their elderly. China doesn't have a Social Security and Medicare plan to take care of their elderly the way that America has. So China is about to have, and India is about to have, and other countries that don't have a social program like Social Security and Medicare to take care of your elders and your seniors when they get to retirement age. There's no retirement. You basically, when you stop working, you run out of money, and that's it. You're done unless you can get a job. And in China, if you're over 35, they're not even trying to hire you. You see, when you have a population that's big, you can discriminate on more than one parameter, and they're not trying to hire anybody above 35. We worried about getting a job here. They can't even get a job past 35 because they're considered old. Women over there are considered old at age 30. That in Asia, 30. If they ain't married by 30, they're probably not going to get married. So there's a disproportionate of single women in China who are age 30 and up because they're not even candidates, you understand? They're called leftover women. They're not even being picked up as leftovers. They're not considered. Even though there's a whole bunch of Chinese women that are not being considered. In Japan, because of their homogenous society, their women not having children, and they have a very inceled society. Japanese are very inceled culturally. They have a lot of incel type mentally ill situations happening in their country with people locking themselves up in their room, not coming out, not association with life. They have a very big depression epidemic within the country. And because of that, women are not having babies. These countries are being depopulated. That's why they have programs trying to get Africans, the only people on the planet with a population surplus. That's why I don't get what some of these so-called Pan-Africans and pro-blacks who profess to be African and understand that we're all African, I find it ironic that they're trying to use mental gymnastics and wordplay to insist that black people in America have a population problem. Let me tell you, hundreds of millions of Africans were brought to the Americas, but about 12 million. Now I want you to, this is the truth, this is real history, not hyperbolic pseudo. About roughly 12 million of those Africans, by way of Nigeria and Ghana, we are the latest imports of European transatlantic slave trade. The African American is the latest African import. We came here after the majority of the African diaspora have already been distributed on the Western Hemisphere. America, mainland, was the last frontier, the last place where slaves were brought. We were the last. It started 500 years ago, and it was the Portuguese and the Dutch and all those European powers in South America. Slavery was going on in South America for a couple hundred years before even, and then it reached the Caribbean, and then it made its way up to North America about 300 years ago. All right? And from Nigeria and West Africa. I know where we're from. I know who we are. I'm trying to tell you. Listen to me. And then do your own research by spitting in a cup, putting $100 in, and finding out definitively where you're from. But you see, African people are the only race on the planet, for argument's sake, race, because race is a construct. Everybody's the same race, but white people want to do this race thing, so that's what we're doing. African people are the only people on the planet that is increasing in number. Also, our population size have been miscued throughout the years. Africa is a massive continent that you guys do not take in consideration. It's massive. It's much bigger than Europe. Europe is all of Europe would be considered one small or medium-sized country in Africa. Okay? That's the size we're talking about. The population of Africa has always been downplayed by Europeans because they wanted to justify their pillaging and plundering by saying there wasn't that many Africans there anyway. That's why it was okay for us to take over, because nobody was there. That's why we kind of just went there. It wasn't as bad as you guys make it out to be. That's a propaganda from Europeans. Africa has always been massively populated, as we are the ones who fertilize the world with human beings. In order to fertilize the world with human beings, you already got to have a surplus. Africa has a surplus of human beings. We have a surplus. So think about this. This is a true history, and think about the value and how dangerous this looks to the European who means to do us harm. They brought us over in North America. They brought about 12 million Nigerians, or what we would call Nigerians and Ghanaians and West Africans, to the North America, Virginia, Georgia, North Carolina, this area, the eastern portion of America. 12 million, about 12 to 13 million of us made it here alive. Over 200 years, over 250 years, I would say. 12 million of us, despite the raping, despite the massacres, despite the medical massacres, despite the genetic manipulation, despite the terrorism, despite the disenfranchisement, despite everything Europeans have ever done to us, we are 45 to 50 million African Americans in this country. That means we have grown exponentially over that time. We have more than doubled, more than tripled. We have quadrupled our numbers despite everything they've done to us to hurt us. Imagine what would happen if we lived in a country that empowered us to be more healthy. We would grow exponentially even further. So from the white perspective, they brought 12 million Africans. We turned into 45 to 50 million Africans, just us. And now there's a continent with probably 3 billion Africans right now that has so many people that they have a surplus, and they can distribute their surplus people around the world and fill up the countries of every European country and still have billions of Africans left. We are taking over the world. African people, us, whatever you want to call yourself, the person that is a descendant of the of Africans that were brought over here from the transatlantic slave trade, despite what you want to believe, African people Us, we are a surplus on this planet. We are taking over the planet. As a matter of fact, this is the best thing to ever happen to us. Now, you got some coons and coonarians who are fighting on behalf of white people in their fight to increase their population. And make no mistake, any black person that's telling you that we have a population problem, any black person that's telling you African Americans, we need to do something about abortion because abortion is killing all of our babies, as if abortion is that simple of a topic that you can just throw out like that, like everything's black and white. Those people are working for white supremacy to increase white numbers. Because if they were intelligent, they would know the Africans, if there ever was a problem, we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of problems. But one problem we don't have, never will have ever in history is a population problem. Anyway, tell me what you got to say in the comment section. Just Afro Think Tank, learn something, teach them. I'm out.